The News Round on Off the Ball. This is News Talk.
You're welcome along on this Tuesday evening. We will look back on the football championship that was in the company of Mick Foley of the Sunday Times, Maurice Brosnan of the Irish Examiner, Colin Keys of the Irish Independent. They have attended more games than most, so they'll reflect on the 2023 season. Daniel Wiffen is doing extraordinary things in a swimming pool at the moment. He finished fourth in not one but two World Finals in Japan last week, so suddenly there's a real chance of a medal in Paris next year. We'll talk to the 22-year-old, and a slight tangent on a streak of one.
Whether you like it or not.
We're back to one. We were at 10 in a row, and now what are we? Dublin. Michael McCarthy, hello.
How are you, Joe?
And Richie McCormack, hello to you.
Gents, how are you?
You weren't in touch, Richie, to say you missed a slight tangent last week?
Oh, no. I noticed that the week that I was off, the slight tangent doesn't happen. Despite the fact that I am tangential to a slight tangent.
Yeah.
It seems like my absence had an effect.
Maybe just being able to tell you about the latest streak that we're on is half the appeal.
That's possibly it.
53106.
We can get there again.
We are at Off the Ball. We can't. 10 weeks.
I have to say it's unlikely now that the summer's over. Football show's back next week.
There's no chance.
Life finds a way.
Yeah. So Daniel Wiffen on the way this hour. The World Championships were on in Japan, sort of just with everything going on. There's a World Cup on, there's GA going on. I don't think the World Swimming Championships really landed in this part of the world, but it really is worth remarking on the fact that Daniel Wiffen, at 22 years of age, finished fourth in the 800 metres final and then finished fourth in the 1500 metres final. This is the best of the best in the world. And what's really extraordinary about the 800 metres final is that in finishing fourth, Daniel Wiffen swam the fourth fastest time at 800 metres in history. Now, unfortunately for him, the three dudes in front swam the first, second and third fastest times in history. So he's straight in at number 4. He is European record holder, given
Think about that, like he's European record holder, and like basically world record level, like, you know what I mean, if he's in that.
Tunisian, an Australian and a US swimmer ahead of him. So he's the first Irish male swimmer to have a European record. And suddenly, you know, Paris coming around the corner, he's very close to a medal. That would be quite something. So we're looking forward to speaking to him at 7:30 or so. I think it completely passed people by, unfortunately.
Yeah. No, I think it's one of those stories as well then that, like, you know, there was a bit of talk about him in Tokyo. There's been a little bit more since. He's had an unbelievable run in between the Olympics here. He was obviously a teenager in the last Olympics, you know, but it's kind of, you know, a lot of many years of hard work to become an overnight success.
Yes,
is the Daniel Wiffen story, I think. So interested to hear him.
Well, just by coincidence, and it was Will's idea outside to get him on. And Gary O'Toole had texted me over the weekend, I'm sure you won't mind me saying, just to say, this guy Daniel Wiffen, he is the real deal, and we should be thinking about Olympic final being a big day next year. So if Gary O'Toole says it,
we had a chat about him on the night you were off, actually, last week, and it kind of, the swimming circles kind of picked up on it, because it is true that they don't get a lot of coverage. And look, I mean, we just had a brief conversation about it. It wasn't any more from us than anywhere else, but it is an interesting thing, because you had Mona McSharry finishing 5th in her final as well. She obviously made an Olympic final last time. She stepped up as well, you know. So there's like, it might be just two individuals, you know, or it might be something that's, you know, something more holistic that's happening in Irish swimming. But it's kind of interesting, like, you know, you're talking about, we're going into the Olympics with like a real interest in the pool for the first time in a long time.
Yeah. And in Rashida Adeleke sprint athletics, so, you know, so you get touch more glamour to it.
Looking forward to Paris, be able to watch things at a normal time of day.
Yeah, there you go. We should get on with the news round. So details, Richie, on the homecoming for the World Cup squad.
Yeah, the homecoming event for the Republic of Ireland squad is to be held in the capital on Thursday. It'll take place in front of the GPO beginning from 6:30 in the evening. Vera Pauw and her squad have already begun the journey home following their group stage exit.
That's a long old flight home.
Yeah, I'd hate to have to go to a party that I had to put on fake smiles for.
No, it won't be fake smiles.
I'm joking, of course, after our many conversations last night. No, I think it'll be good for them to be able to kind of see that the impact they've had. They're very far away over there, you know, so I think that'll be good. But yeah, it's a draining out flight is the trip home from Australia, Joe.
We had England in action today, Richie.
Yeah, they're in a fine fettle as well. 2 goals and 3 assists from Lauren James saw England breeze into the last 16 at the World Cup. They beat China 6-1 to finish top of Group D, and a second round date with Nigeria on Monday in Brisbane is their reward. Denmark's 2-0 win over Haiti saw them finish as group runners up. They'll play co-host Australia in the last 16. England head coach Serena Wiegman says James' enjoyment of the game today was infectious.
Yeah, of course, but I think you could see it from the whole team that we were enjoying ourselves. You could tell that we were really connected. The ball was going around and we had different ways to go in attack. And of course, LJ was one of them. And when she scored the goals, you could also tell that the whole team was enjoying that. Besides that, of course, the whole team was enjoying every goal.
Rich, we almost had this tournament blown wide open earlier this morning.
We did indeed. Lauren James' performance, by the way, today was absolutely spectacular. But the holders were a post's width away from going out this morning. Portugal's Ana Capita struck the woodwork in injury time, but the USA managed to hold on for a goalless draw in Auckland and finished as Group E runners up. The Netherlands topped that group after a 7-0 demolition of Vietnam. Their last 16 opponents will be made concrete in the next day or so.
Not happy in America by all accounts. You've Carly Lloyd.
They weren't good.
Carly Lloyd apparently calling them out on Fox TV as one of the pundits. So I think there's a little bit of unhappiness that they're scraping through, as opposed to I don't know if they're genuine contenders for this tournament.
I was on the New York Times website. I didn't go into any of the stories, but I did see a litany of stories, and the headlines were all, "This is terrible. What's happened to our attack?" etc. So.
They were very, very flat this morning.
Okay.
Very flat. The Portugal chance, to be fair, was probably their only genuine one of the game, and it was 3-4 minutes into injury time out of 7. America had most of the ball, a lot of the attacking play, but just were so blunt, remarkably blunt compared to what we've seen in previous tournaments. And I guess age has a factor to do with it, because this is a team that has been on a roll for several years, if not the guts of a decade now. So that's going to be in effect, but they weren't good, and you compare that, you contrast that with England's performance straight afterwards pretty much today. England and Lauren James were an absolute joy to watch. Granted, China weren't good at all, but England were still very, very good in how they passed the ball, and James' 2 finishes for her goals were sublime.
By the way, we had a bloody extraordinary number of emails into a slight tangent. Too many to read.
I read them all.
Yeah.
60 since we've done one last, just to kind of put a number on.
Not an email, that's a high word count.
It's 61 actually, since the last time we were on. And actually, I think one has come in this evening already. So let's say that's in 2 weeks. A lot of, everybody's putting a little bit of thought into them and putting. They're not just sending in a text to the show or whatever. So I actually think it's an extraordinary amount. It's we're not touching most of them, lads. Let's face it, but
they're too long. 60 by that word count, Richie. I mean, that's a thesis. I'm not reading.
Once it goes over 3 sentences, it's too much. That's what I've learned from writing stories.
I did see quite a few. I mean, we can put them into certain categories. I would say quite a few did catch a talking point of the last couple of weeks, which is that there is something lacking in All-Ireland final day at the moment, both at the ground with no curtain raiser, and then somebody was saying even at home, the coverage coming on super early because it's minor final time, and even that in Irish, that tradition, and then you've got the Jubilee team out in front of actually thousands of people and not tens of people, and something's just gone awry, and people are missing the Sevens tournament as well, which kind of added a sense of festival to the weekend. One suggestion said, let's stick on the Railway Cup, bring back the Railway Cup and have that as the curtain raiser.
Yeah,
I didn't think that would work.
Do you not know?
No.
Be a bit of
That's an outside call.
Jeez, you've got a lot of great players that could be playing. You just take away the 2 counties involved, obviously.
Yeah,
you don't think that could be fun? It's like almost having the Pro Bowl instead of the week before the Super Bowl, having it on the day of the Super Bowl in the same venue.
I just wouldn't want it to be all good crack and high fives between opposition. If you're telling me it would get a little bit nasty.
Arthur described it as exhibition hurling.
Yeah, no, I've no interest in that.
We're very against that.
Come
kind
on,
of thing.
what about the Fenway 11s thing or whatever that
exactly.
was?
None of that.
Do you know what? Listening to Paul Murphy and James Skell after the hurling pod live a few weeks ago, those hurling 11s account for an awful lot of stories salaries that those lads have.
I bet they do.
Yeah,
None of
the
them playing
actual games include, I mean the actual games and stuff like that. But anyway, yeah, we're very. I do find we're very anti-exhibition sport in this country.
I wouldn't. I have no interest.
I love it in America.
Yeah, no, I get that. I would want it to be like I want it to be Connacht saying, let's really stick it up to these Leinster lads now.
Yeah, well, why wouldn't they?
Well, I just feel the air of the game might be, you're here, I'm here, high five.
If it got too important, though, it would overshadow the match. Like, it would.
I don't think so. That was one suggestion anyway. It's definitely a novel one, because it's hard to think of what the curtain raiser should be, but you do need something to get the ground alive early.
Yeah. I know, you need to get into it. Yeah, that was the first. I wasn't at the football final, but the hurling final was the first time I was at a final since they got rid of the minor match, and it was weird. Just felt like going to another match in some ways. Now, obviously after the game it doesn't, but in the build-up, absolutely.
Rich, we had Paul O'Connell giving a press conference today.
Yeah, he believes Jonathan Sexton will be concerned by not being able to play in any of Ireland's World Cup warm-ups. The captain suspended, of course, on account of his actions that followed May's Heineken Champions Cup final. Sexton aside, there is a full squad from which to choose for Saturday's visit of Italy to the Aviva, and forwards coach O'Connell is confident Sexton can hit the ground running in France.
I think the way we train suits the scenario he's in, and I think it's a strength of his to be able to come back as well, having been out. You know, you meet Johnny on a Monday or Tuesday, and he can talk about any match that was on TV. I don't know how he gets away with it. He seems to watch an awful lot of rugby. He thinks a lot about rugby, so I think that kind of helps him hit the ground running when he comes back. So it's certainly, I'd say it's a worry for him. He wants to finish playing really, really well, and I'd say he'd love to have a few more games under his belt, but it is what it is, and as I said, it's a silver lining for our squad. It allows some guys to take ownership, so it's not something I'm worried about.
No, I wouldn't be really, because he's such a track record of doing it, and the group stages are ample time to really get into gear for the most important game, but it's not ideal. Colm on YouTube wonders, does Tony Kelly or Conor Whelan really want to be the warm-up act for Limerick or Kilkenny? It's hard to know what buy-in you would get.
Yeah, the defeated semi-finalists, I think in particular, are going to struggle. But at the same time, if it's just a part of the calendar and it's just the way it is, and do you know what? I feel that we make more sometimes of guys like having to pick themselves up off the ground more. Like, I mean, Tony Kelly's played 2 rounds of the Clare Championship already. Yeah. Do you know, since Clare got knocked out, like, that's what they do.
He's not at home in a black veil weeping.
But if you know your schedule and you know it's part of it, it's like, oh God, we didn't make the final. We'll have a couple of days out with the lads. We'll have whatever, and then it's like, right, what's next? Railway Cup is next. Yeah. Oh Jesus, I'll probably get that call now soon. Yeah. And then Nicky English or whoever the manager is gives him a call. Right, I'm in that. That's my next 2 weeks. I think we'd underestimate that, or we overestimate, I think, sometimes how kind of like, I don't know. I don't know. They'll just do kind of what the calendar sort of suggests in some ways.
Lads, I love seeing the English men's team, any England men's team, to be fair, lose in spectacular fashion. This England women's team, though, I found myself really cheering them on this morning. Explain that to me, Peter. I can't, Peter. You'll have to figure it out for yourself. I'm not too sure.
I don't get paid enough for that.
Do you really think the players will want a homecoming, lads? They're professionals, probably not happy with how things went. I'm just not sure what it serves. Gloria in Athlone. I think they will on balance.
Yeah. Look at Louise Quinn's tweet today about being just delighted that they got to represent their country at a World Cup. For them to have that mirror back at them from whoever turns up at the GPO on Thursday evening will be absolutely immense for them. Like, they've watched, like, they're old enough to say, it's probably not to remember the 1990, but they've seen shots of that. They've seen the shots of the Phoenix Park in 94 and then 2002 with the homecoming. That was for those players, like, they've seen homecomings before and they want to have their own, and they're they're fully entitled to it as well, to be honest.
I was at the O2 homecoming. It's the first time I drank whiskey.
Jesus, fair enough.
Phoenix
Park.
Yeah, Phoenix Park. It was a bit lacking. It's too wide a space. There was no atmosphere in the Phoenix Park. Like, it needs to be city centre. For Phoenix Park, it was just, the concerts and those kind of places. Yeah. I remember Joe Duffy interviewing Duffer. My main memory is he said, and of course a couple of Spanish players came down with DDD. Yeah. Damien Duff disease.
Damien Duff dizziness.
Dizziness.
Disease.
Listen, I've had a few drinks.
I've had a few whiskies for the first time. Tell us more.
Yeah.
The homecoming thing, we need to be so careful with expectations, sporting expectations in this country, because I feel like we're just swarmed by British media, and like England teams in all sports are obviously going to have different expectations that we do, and it's like we feel like as if there's this sort of like curmudgeonly attitude towards celebrating what people will describe as failure or whatever. The success for this team was reaching the first ever tournament and going to the World Cup and playing well and not disgracing themselves. Grand, they didn't get out of the group, but we weren't expecting them to. We have to understand that, you know, it can't be just like we can only celebrate when we like massively overachieve.
Yeah, I understand the Olympic champions Canada maybe not having a big homecoming, but Ireland are in a very different place.
100%, yeah.
Dublin jersey numbers, lads. Fitzsimons 3, Cluxton 1, McCarthy 5. Total equals 9 times, anonymous. I'll be honest, you're about 48 hours late to this party if you're texting that in on Tuesday. I mean, you couldn't go left or right on Twitter but for that one.
Oh, I only saw it once there today, so yeah,
everywhere on Sunday. But listen, we appreciate the text, in fairness, we appreciate it. What's the conclusion? It was written in the stars.
Yeah, it's not as if they all changed their number.
Yeah. My reaction when I first saw it was, oh yeah, move on.
You don't like that kind of thing in general, though.
No, well, that's a strange thing to say.
I just don't think you're not blown away by like coincidences, or like you don't read things into.
But like, what adult?
Numerology.
What adult went whoa and had their mind blown by that?
Well, not I, unfortunately.
Richie,
not saying I'd be above it though.
Yeah, like, fair enough. I guess it's probably one of those, annoyingly now, it's one of those things I'll always remember. Richie, interesting news. Andrew Omobamidele could have been headed for Milan.
It could still be. Yeah, Norwich have reportedly rejected a bid from AC Milan for the Republic of Ireland defender Andrew Omobamidele. Milan offered 7.5 million for the 21-year-old, but Norwich want double that. Rasmus Højlund, meanwhile, has arrived in Manchester for the first part of his Manchester United medical. The Danish striker poised to make a 75 million euro move from Atalanta. Chelsea, meanwhile, have completed the signing of Rennes midfielder Leslie Ogachoku. The 19-year-old has signed a 7-year contract at Stamford Bridge. Liverpool, meanwhile, have another midfield vacancy to fill following the sale last night of Fabinho. The Brazilian midfielder has joined Al Ittihad, in Saudi Arabia on a 3-year contract. It's believed they've paid Liverpool 47 million euro for the 29-year-old. Despite selling both Fabinho and Jordan Henderson to Saudi clubs in this window, Jurgen Klopp has concerns over the Gulf states' bargaining power.
I don't know, but in the moment it looks as quite influence. It's massive in the moment. I think pretty much the worst thing is that the transfer window in Saudi Arabia is 3 weeks longer open. If I'm right, I heard something like that, than at least in Europe. That's not helpful. So there must be, UEFA, FIFA must find solutions for that. But in the end, I don't know in this moment what exactly will happen. It is already influential for us, for sure. But we will have to learn to deal with it, and that's what we do.
She's a ransacking Liverpool. 29. Fabinho only 29. I can understand Jordan Henderson at 33 saying, well, my best days are run here.
Yeah.
29 is a real, I'm cashing in early.
I think the evidence of people's eyes would suggest that Fabinho's best days are behind him as well.
I think it's a good call.
I think Fabinho should say, I'm 29, I'm going to have the pre-season of my life, I'm going to show everybody. Like, sometimes when a 23-year-old has a bad season, they have a bad season. 29-year-old has a bad season, they're written off. I think he could. I have no doubt he's not finished.
Fair enough. Well, he might be now because he's gone over.
He's retired now.
League,
It's his pension.
I find it interesting though that Klopp is kind of talking about a negative there. I don't know if they would have wanted to lose Henderson, but it's not. They needed a big rebuild here, and they're doing it all in one area of the pitch, which is very interesting. But that midfield was the problem, and they weren't going to go anywhere with Fabinho and Henderson.
Fair enough.
And the backups being Naby Keita, Oxlade-Chamberlain, and I'm missing someone else, or someone else gone as well from there. And I think that they've done very, very well to have willing buyers for like 30 million or whatever it is for Fabinho at this stage. I didn't think they got enough.
50 million.
50, sorry, as well. Sorry, 29. And they didn't probably get enough for Henderson in the end. I feel like they could have driven a harder bargain there.
Suddenly Trent is thinking, well, I'm midfielder now.
Why not?
Will Galway hurlers represent Connacht or Leinster?
I think for the hurling, you nearly have to go with Leinster versus Munster, don't you?
Just over and over again.
Then you get some you get some Antrim guys in and stuff like that. Give big days out in Croke Park. There's loads of good things to this.
Yeah, it's Leinster Munster.
I'm robbing Will's points from tangent later, but I suppose we've done the Railway Cup bit now.
Oh, it's done now. I'm not reading that email again. Hi guys, I really do believe that the FAI should have given Vera Pauw a contract before this tournament, as without a contract it makes her look weak as a manager and dulls confidence from the team. Please discuss Bernard in Limerick. I suppose, to be fair, my thought on that, Bernard, is there are two sides to it. You can certainly give the contract first if you believe in the manager as much as the FAI up until about 3 weeks ago seemed to, and you do make the manager a very strong figure then, and they've total control of the World Cup and the future is settled beyond. Traditionally there's been awareness in doing that, because if things blow up badly at a World Cup, then suddenly you're stuck with a manager that nobody wants. There are merits and arguments for and against both of those avenues. What's been really strange about this situation is the FAI have done the worst of both worlds, in that they very publicly opened negotiations with Vera Pauw, and Kieran Medler was representing her, and she was talking about it constantly, that negotiations are underway and things are progressing, and then suddenly the handbrake was pulled. Now that's a disaster. That's just, I mean, if there's a worst way of doing it, that's it. So whether they should have given her the contract or held off, I could see the merits in both, but make the decision very clearly well in advance and then just do it. Don't wait halfway out and then decide, well, we're not sure anymore, because that's just created a really strange dynamic.
Yeah, we don't know what's gone behind the scenes either. Like, I mean, we talked yesterday about the number of players who have kind of like dodged the question of asking whether their manager should stay on or not. So that's one thing. But like, in terms of like giving the contract beforehand, like, I was in Lansdowne Road when Mick McCarthy's last game, when Ireland lost to Switzerland, having already been beaten in Russia, and the whole post-Saipan thing, you know, just got very, very toxic. And like, it was a horrible night. Like, the things people were chanting. You left Lansdowne Road that night knowing that Mick McCarthy wasn't going to be Ireland manager anymore. There was no way back from it, and there was a whole new, you know what I mean? That was something that, like, we don't know what's going to happen at a tournament. As you say, you need to kind of see what happens and assess then. I think you're probably in a better position. Look, you risk losing people that way, absolutely, but I don't know, I'd be wary of it anyway.
As a matter of interest, do you think if the FAI had not given Mick a contract pre-World Cup and then Saipan, everything happened as it did, do you think they would have offered him a new contract after that World Cup? No. I don't know. I mean, I think in the immediate aftermath there was probably a bit of euphoria and so on, but I think as the summer went on and as the new season started, it felt a little bit like things were just turning, and regardless of whether you were Team Roy or Team Mick, I think the fact that it had been allowed to happen and it got so bad, I think meant, you know, one, I think most people wanted Roy Keane to come back and play for Ireland. He was still one of the best players in the world. That was the problem.
He wasn't going to do it when Mick was there. Yeah. Like, so as soon as we lost to Russia, it was just toxic then. Like, you know.
Yeah. And wasn't it around that time Sunderland United, McAteer put that in your book? It was great stuff all the same.
Oh, the drama was unbelievable.
Great stuff.
We weren't going to those Euros anyway, so like, you know, we may as well enjoy it.
Yeah. So we're staying with football, Richie.
Speaking of Saudi, they've just wrapped up a deal, Al Nassr that is, for Sadio Mane from Bayern Munich. So he's now a teammate of Cristiano Ronaldo. And Sheffield United's preparations for the new season have taken a blow, with Iliman Ndiaye leaving the Bramall club to join Marseille. Roisin Nireen is going to be in lane 3 for tonight's final of the 100-metre breaststroke at the Paris Swimming World Championships. The Limerick swimmer already has a silver from yesterday's 100-metre butterfly. Gold or silver this week in Manchester secures qualification for next year's Paralympic Games in Paris. That final in the pool at 8:15.
Can I go back to Saudi for a minute and just on Klopp's points about it, how much of a danger it is almost? Are we, like, Sadio Mane is a huge name, my God, like, but at the same time, I don't think English Champions League teams are necessarily in the market for anyone that's gone. Mane's probably the closest, is he? Like, is Klopp going to lose out on targets, or is like one of his big players that he doesn't want to lose going to go to Saudi Arabia? I think until that happens, I'm not going to be concerned, but
there's probably an issue in terms of the price curve. Well, they're not targets per se for for Premier League clubs, you could say, well, Fabinho is worth €47 million. What is X worth compared to that? Like you saw Thomas Frank using that as regards trying to price David Raya out of the market during the week. And like we've spoken before about Newcastle and their sponsorship deals and Manchester City and their sponsorship deals and what are their market values. When you have the Public Investment Fund propping up 4 Saudi clubs.
Yeah, of course.
What is the arrangement there in how they come to value a player? When you see the amount of money that they paid for like Ruben Neves, who had a year left in his contract, like Bulls weren't getting anywhere close to what they got for Ruben Neves from any other club, but from a Saudi one. So how they're arriving at their market values is, God knows what goes into that, Mats. And secondly, they're skewing the prices for the rest of the European market. But again, there's a point like about, players gone to Saudi Arabia, and I think John Bruin made it last night online. If clubs and if players and if people have such an issue with players going to Saudi Arabia, why do they accept the clubs taking the money so readily?
Clock coming against us. 2 golf stories to finish with.
Yeah, Tiger Woods has joined the PGA Tour's policy board. The 15-time major winner is the 6th player to join the board and follows in the footsteps of Rory McIlroy, Patrick Cantlay, Charlie Hoffman, Peter Malnati and Webb Simpson. Woods' appointment means players now outnumber independent directors on that board. And while County Down is to host the Horizon Irish Open next year, it'll be the first time the course has had the honour since Soren Kjeldsen beat Bernd Wiesberger and Eddie Pepperell in a playoff in 2015. The Open hasn't been played in the 6 counties since Galgorm Castle had hosting duties during the COVID year of 2020. This year's event gets underway on September 7th at the K Club.
Now that is a golf course.
Have you played it?
Yeah. Outrageous.
Hard?
Yeah. But just spectacular.
Right, okay.
Yeah. Like, you definitely, I mean, that, to be fair, that was the year Rory called in a lot of favours to get an exceptional field over for an Irish Open, and then I think he spent a lot of the rest of the year paying those guys back by turning up at their days and gave up his own time. But Royal County Down is so storied internationally that you'd stand a great chance of getting just 1 or 2 extras that you mightn't otherwise, because it's that good, Yeah. So it's great. We're out of time. Richie, thank you.
Nice and nuts.
Mick McCarthy, thank you very much.